Recently, the Euclid Space Telescope has been having a problem with ice. A thin buildup of ice on the surface of its internal mirrors has started to cause a problem for the telescope. The problem of how do you defrost a telescope that's 1.5 million kilometers away is a tough one, because it's not like we can send someone up with a windscreen wiper to clear it off. In this video, let's talk about how we heated up individual elements of the telescopes in a smart way, without heating the whole thing up. And also discuss how you even get ice on a telescope when it's in the vacuum of space. Just like your glasses can steam up when you open a hot oven, or a car mists up on some mornings. It turns out space telescopes can have problems with water vapor too. Telescopes in deep space tend to be very, very cold, either thanks to the immense coldness of space or because of cooling onboard the telescope to keep it even colder. Often, this is needed to maximize their ability to study the universe in incredibly high resolution, but does mean you can have a problem with ice. If water vapor lands on a mirror, it instantly freezes and turns to ice, and even a tiny bit can be a big problem. In the case of Euclid, the European Space Agency's latest high-profile telescope, that's aiming to produce a 3D map of the universe that includes over 1 billion galaxies. It was a layer of ice just a few molecules thick. That's all that was needed to cause this issue. For context, that layer of ice was the width of a strand of DNA or some other large molecule, but it began causing problems anyway, resulting in a loss of visible light detected by Euclid, up to 15% at times. The Euclid telescope has two detectors, one called NISP that detects near-infrared light, and one called VIS that detects visible light. It was in VIS that this issue was being seen. So let's first talk about where the water vapor comes from, and then we'll look at the telescope and understand why only one of the detectors was affected by the ice. Initially, this sounds confusing because the detectors are pretty near each other in the Euclid payload, but there is one mirror that affects one of them and not the other, so we'll take a look at that too. So how do you get ice on mirrors when you're in the vacuum of space? Well, the water vapor doesn't come from space, but it actually comes from the telescope itself. As Euclid was built here on Earth, it absorbs water from the air around it. Even though it was built in a clean room, it's not built in a vacuum, and it can absorb a lot of water during construction. Actually, being in a clean room was part of the problem. These rooms are often kept at about 50% humidity to reduce electrostatic buildup and discharge. That is, so static electricity doesn't damage the sensitive instruments being built. The issue though, is that it means there's plenty of moisture in the air for the telescope to absorb. The worst offending component is the multi-layer insulation that protects the spacecraft, which can absorb up to 1% of its weight in moisture, giving us a potential 100 grams or so of water vapor on board. Of course, this was known about and expected before launch, although the extent of the light loss due to ice was pretty hard to model mathematically, so we didn't know exactly how big of a problem it was going to be. It did mean though that we tried to prevent it. So before launch, we went through a few procedures to remove as much water as possible, effectively baking all of the important components to remove as much water as possible. Even after launch, as Euclid was traveling the 1.5 million kilometers to Lagrange point 2, the whole telescope spent 96 hours pointing at the sun in such a way as to try and boil, or more accurately, sublimate off as much remaining water as possible. This was really successful, and it did remove most of the water, but it's almost impossible to get all of it. Since a telescope is cooled to well below minus 100 degrees Celsius, any remaining water will easily condense to pretty much anything it touches, and that is the problem. For a little while, most of the water that remained was safely trapped in the insulation, but over time it can escape in a process we call outgassing. In space, it takes a lot less heat to evaporate water, because in the vacuum there is no pressure, and water boils at way lower temperatures when there's no pressure. Even just going up a mountain where the air pressure drops a little bit at the top, water boils at lower temperatures there. So in space, the effect is very dramatic. So over time, as we turned Euclid on and started calibrating it, and making sure everything worked, all looked well. We could see the universe incredibly clearly. Euclid regularly looks at a bunch of stars with known brightnesses, just to check it's continuing to work as expected. We call these the Euclid self-calibration fields. The telescope compares what it sees each time to how bright it saw those stars previously, and how bright another ESA mission called Gaia also saw the same stars. We noticed the problem when those stars started to look dimmer to Euclid than they did before, meaning that somehow we were receiving less light than before. Now, some stars do vary in brightness over time, but these ones are very stable over millions of years. So we knew the problem was in the telescope and not with the stars. The light loss was also only in the visible instrument VIS and not in NISP. So we were able to narrow down where the ice was forming. Of course, the simplest way to remove the ice is just to heat up the entire spacecraft, sublimating the ice and hopefully fixing the problem. But sadly, it wasn't that simple. You see, the telescope has been calibrated now, so we understand very well the exact state of the telescope and any artifacts, imperfections, or systematics that it imprints on the images it takes. If we heat the whole telescope up, it will expand a little bit, just like anything does when it warms up. When it cools back down to the chilly minus 140 degrees or so, it's not guaranteed that it will settle down to the exact same state, and we'd have to do the whole calibration process over again. That's a process that involves understanding what we call the point spread function, or PSF. A telescope doesn't normally see a point of light as a point, and for example, stars end up with these diffraction spikes we can see here. To be able to understand these objects, we need to understand what the telescope did to the light in incredible detail. That involves calculating the PSF, and it's a lengthy process of at least several weeks, and we really don't want to be doing that regularly, as it's time that we can't be using the telescope to actually study the universe. Instead, after many weeks of planning and hard work, the Euclid team decided on a plan to heat up 2 mirrors of Euclid individually to see if we could fix the issue. That might be more mirrors than you expected the telescope to have, and the ones that we heated aren't even visible from the outside. When light enters the telescope, it hits the 1.2 meter main mirror of Euclid, which we call M1. It's reflected and focused onto a smaller secondary mirror M2, and then it goes through this hole right here in M1 and into the belly of the beast. Neither of M1 or M2 were heated up to remove ice here. They are too risky to heat up at this point, and most of their water vapor was removed in the baking processes I mentioned earlier. As light continues its journey, it reaches a short labyrinth of mirrors, which we can follow first down this white path. It's redirected by what we call folding mirror 1. Hits folding mirror 2, and then moves to another main mirror that we call M3. I know this is complicated, but bear with me. The folding mirrors are just flat mirrors that redirect light without changing anything about it or focusing it in any way. They fold light rather than being physically folding mirrors like the main mirrors on JWST. Euclid's main mirrors, M1, M2, and M3, are each slightly convex or concave, and they focus light in some way onto another mirror or filter or detector. We call Euclid a 3-mirror telescope, even though it has these extra folding mirrors too. We just don't count them in the name. From M3, the light is focused onto a dichroic mirror. This is a special filter that lets near-infrared light pass through it and straight into the NISP detector, but it reflects visible light. This visible light then continues on the yellow path here. It then hits a third and final folding mirror, and then it passes into the VIS detector. That's the full light path through Euclid, and shows how it separates visible and infrared light. It also gives us a main target for the ice buildup. Since we were seeing a loss of light in VIS, but not in NISP, the prime target becomes folding mirror 3, as it only interacts with light that's going into VIS. The ice on the surface can scatter light away in the wrong directions, and means that less of it reaches the detector. FOM3 is also likely to be the coldest mirror on the telescope, and if anything went wrong, it's also one of the lowest risk mirrors to heat up, as it's very stable and a very robust mirror. These things combined make that the perfect starting place. In the end, we actually did heat up M3 as well as folding M3. And in this 3D model, if you look closely, you can see individual heaters around these 2 mirrors, allowing us to heat them up, but leave the rest of the telescope effectively untouched and thermally stable. They were heated from minus 140 degrees Celsius to a positively tropical minus 117 degrees Celsius. It doesn't need to get hot or hotter than this, because as I said, in space, ice sublimates very easily. Heating up M3 basically changed nothing. It didn't solve the problem. But heating up the folding mirror did have an amazing result. This graph shows the increase in light that VIS saw after the heating of FM3. And we can see that the light increased by 15% or more, exactly what we'd lost due to ice. It took about 90 minutes to reach the temperature where the ice sublimated, and after only 19 more minutes, all of the ice was essentially gone, and full service could be resumed. Admittedly, it then took another 2 days or so to cool everything back down to Euclid's operating temperatures. If this hadn't solved the problem, then more parts of the telescope would have been warmed up to try and find the problem. However, after the heating, pretty much all of the lost light is now being seen again. This heating campaign has solved our issue. For now. You see, these mirrors are all contained inside the telescope. So once the ice sublimates off of those mirrors, it can't actually escape into space. It's trapped, so it will still be there somewhere, and may eventually find its way back onto one of the mirrors. If so, we'll have to repeat this process as many times as needed to keep Euclid working perfectly. If the current rates continue, then we may have to do this every 6 months or so, and the whole process takes about 3 or 4 days. Euclid's mission requires higher sensitivity than many other telescopes, so it needs to worry about the tiny effects of ice even more, whereas other missions can sometimes get away ignoring it. The problem was anticipated too, hence the fact we installed those heaters. Previous ESA mission Gaia didn't have those heaters, and it also had terrible problems with ice. It had to heat itself up using just the sun 6 times or so in its first year, and each time it had to be recalibrated as the whole thing warmed up. All in all, this has actually been a huge success for Euclid, even if it was all a bit experimental, as a process like this has never been done before in space. Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this down below in the comments, and thanks a lot for watching. Until next time, stay safe team. I'll see you soon. Bye!